Hi everyone, and welcome back to another day of the 12 Days of SwitchUp. Today we're going to be looking at 10 hidden gems.
Yeah, exactly right. So we've done a few of these sort of videos in the past, as you would expect by now, and we'll stick links to the most recent ones in the description. There may be some games on there that you would expect to see here that aren't, and that's why. But we've tried to pick 10 games that you might not have heard of before, basically.
Hopefully, otherwise it's a rubbish video.
Yeah, be missing the point completely, which is,
Would be sad.
It would be sad, yeah.
So, as always, please do save yourselves 10%. It supports us and it supports you, hopefully, because you're saving a bit of money by using switchup.gg, code SwitchUp, to buy your eShop credit if you're in the American or the EU regions. All that's left to say is, what are the 10 hidden gems for 2022 for us? Well, let's find out.
Right, the first one I want to talk about then is Assault Chain Gun SKM. Now this is a light gun game that you can play with up to 4 players. I haven't tried it with 4, to be fair. And this was recommended by one of our viewers, actually, someone called Gary. So thank you very much for that recommendation, because this is a great game. If you like your kind of rail shooters from back in the day, the arcade games, reminds me very much of something like Gunblade, actually, then this is a great deal of fun. You're playing almost from like a helicopter or something like that. So your viewpoint is always shifting, the camera's always moving, and you're having to keep your aim and take out the enemies. And you can use it, or it's so much more fun when if you have like one of the, the plastic peripherals, like the guns you can get.
Yep.
I know a lot of these things look like gimmicks a lot of the time, but the one I would always endorse is any sort of light gun.
Yeah.
They really do make the experience so much more fun. But you can use, obviously, the pointer controls, or you can even use touchscreen if you want to as well.
To make the edit slightly more difficult, Glen's going to show, or I'm going to show, a picture of the light gun that we've just bought, because it's really very good, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It comes with a game called, I don't know, was it Chicken?
The Duck something.
Chicken something. You'll see it in the footage now. The game is terrible. Let's just say that now. Don't buy it for the game, whatever you do. But the gun is very solid.
Yeah.
And for things like this and House of the Dead, makes the experience so much more fun.
Absolutely. And I think we've been looking for some more light gun style games. This one's a recent pickup. It's very cheap, like Glen says. Being able to have the light gun, if you've got one, on screen. I like it that the reticule stays on screen the whole time, because it really feels like as you move the gun, you're moving what's on screen directly. Yeah, good one. Not bad for that price at all. And one more for the collection.
Absolutely.
Next up then, we've got a really interesting game called The Return of the Obra Dinn, and it's one that I have spoken about before, probably on one of these lists, honestly. But it follows an unusual premise where you're essentially an investigator sent on board this vessel that is a historically accurate vessel that went completely off the radar, and then its entire crew disappeared. You're sent in by the East India Trading Company to essentially find out what happened to all of the crew. And you've got a book that shows every crew member, and I think there's about 100. There's a lot on there.
Okay.
And you can watch flashbacks of memories to try and gradually work out who everyone was. So on like your notes, it will say like, I don't know, Bob Johnson, nice name. I don't know, worked in the rear of the ship, like a very vague clue.
Okay.
And you can, and like, I don't know, had a beard.
Right.
Like that. And then you would gradually try and work out, well, that guy in the flashback, he had a beard, he was at the back of the ship, he got hit by a cannonball. So then you would log that. Bob Johnson died via cannonball.
Oh, I see. I'm with you. Is it a bit like the Batman games when you go into detective mode?
Yeah.
Like that sort of gameplay style?
Like that, but taken to the nth degree.
Right, yeah.
So much more complex.
Yeah.
And like you'll genuinely be sat there many times. You'll watch a whole thing play out and you'll be like, nah, haven't a clue. You go to another one and go, oh, actually that person's got, I don't know, like a peg leg or something, and then it said that Bob had that, or maybe that wasn't Bob that I just said.
Oh, okay.
It's really cool, and it's not always as clear cut as you would think, and there's a lot of nuance to it. Really good game.
Yeah, this is one I wanted to pick up physically, but I think it was via limited run, and it just, it's
sad.
And obviously over here it's harder to get them further still, so it might be one I pick up on a digital sale in the end. But yeah, I've obviously seen it, and it does look great. Yeah. Right, the next one is a game called Kaze and the Wild Masks, which is a platformer, a 2D platformer, borrows very heavily from Donkey Kong Country in terms of its basic mechanics, in terms of the way you can collect letters of your name as you go through the levels. It has its own variation of kind of the barrels that would shoot you across parts of levels, as Donkey Kong did too. But what I like about this one, I mean, first and foremost, it's just a very sound, very tight game, very much fun to play. But the mask element that obviously the title alludes to has you finding these masks at certain points, which will change you into a different animal and then give you a different power. So you may become is it a frog or a fish? I forget, but obviously you can swim, a bird, and then you can fly, and it just changes the levels up slightly. I mean, you could argue that even that is kind of borrowed from Donkey Kong in terms of the animal friends you had in those games, but you know, in terms of this game on its own, it's a great alternative if you're looking for another 2D platformer.
Yeah, although I can't offer much in the way of exposition about the actual game itself, I have just noticed, and this is why it's on this list, that on Steam it's got a 10 out of 10 rating with a 96 overwhelmingly positive review score.
Oh, there we go.
Which is quite rare.
Yeah, no, it's a very good game. We reviewed this one. There'll be a link to the review. That was reviewed for us by Dave over at Outtakes, but I've myself played it and played a big chunk of it, and you know, wholeheartedly agree with what he said in his review.
Next up then is a game that I've been playing through, or had played through for review, called Bear and Breakfast. Now, as the title suggests, you play as Yogi, well, you play as a bear, and you're hanging around with your friends until you decide to go off and make your name in the world. And you head through the forest and find an old abandoned lodge, essentially. And as bears do, you decide to renovate it. So you and your pals renovate this lodge. It, in that regard, is a bit like Theme Hospital, you know, so you can like drag the rooms how you want them.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Place all the different items. And then what you put into them affects their value, essentially, for the guests that you can book in. What I really just loved about this game was how it opened up, and then you had several different areas. So you almost go to like a version of the Mojave Desert, and you open up, you take over an old shop and do that up and turn that into a lodge. You go to the an equivalent of the Arctic or something, you know, and you can set up a huge ski lodge up there. It's brilliant. Now the problem with this, and it's such a glaring problem, I mentioned it a lot in the review, are the controls.
Oh, okay, right.
Like, unlike Theme Hospital, which has totally refined that control method, the controls here they use are just a bit odd. You know, there are buttons that you want to confirm with that take you back out, and you really do have to learn the controls before you can get the full enjoyment of this. And that could, and I have seen it in the comments, that can be too much for some people. And it was a big part of the review. It's like, how does that juggle in terms of scores and things like that? And it did really knock some of the scores down. But it doesn't stop what's a brilliant game. Now, it's had a few patches. I don't know. I haven't revisited it, so I can't tell you if they've changed the controls. Maybe you can let me know in the comments, but I'll have a look. But as far as core gameplay, absolutely brilliant. Love it.
Nice. Right, the one I'm going to mention next is similar in terms of genre to the one you've just mentioned there, and this is Let's Build a Zoo. So again, a management simulation game where you have to construct, you know, your ideal zoo. And again, as you said, you'll be putting down buildings, not just the enclosures for the animals, but obviously shops and what have you as well. And what makes it slightly different, well, two things actually. The first one is how you get your animals, which is that you trade them with other zoos. So you can't just
that's cool.
buy the next animal that you want. You know, you have to have a certain type of the animals available to you, and then you can trade one for another animal, and obviously from there it almost starts like a chain reaction to get in more and more. And it also has like a gene splicing element to it where you can create hybrid animals, which I haven't done too much of. You know, it's a huge part of the game that at the minute I'm kind of ignoring, but it's there and you can do it. And yeah, it's just a great deal of fun. It does all of the things well that these games used to do. It's got that top-down view like the old theme park as it would have been, and maybe Zoo Tycoon, those sort of things, before it started becoming a bit more 3D, you know, and I prefer that style.
I think this is one of those that people looking at it are gonna, like I am, just listening to you, really want to try out that gene splicing mechanic. I think that's a quality idea. And it does have a dinosaur expansion as well, so you could do your literal life finds a way moment.
Yes, exactly that. And the dinosaur DLC comes as standard on the physical version.
It's a touch.
So if you're buying it, obviously on the eShop, that's DLC. You pay more for it, unless there's a bundle, I don't know. But if you do buy the physical version, you get both together, which is great.
Nice. Next up for me then is a game called Potion Permit. There's a bit of a theme here because on Switch we had a load of those like life sim style games come out all at once. And people thought that this one was going to essentially be Stardew Valley with alchemy, which isn't quite accurate in my opinion. You start off arriving at this town and they're very much anti, what would you class it as, like official medicine?
Science, isn't it?
Yeah, anti-science, yeah. So they're very much like, they've got a witch doctor in the town who acts as the antagonist for the storyline. And everyone's kind of against you, and throughout the game as you heal people in your in the town, they gradually turn around and come onto your side, and then obviously there's a storyline dealing with that witch doctor. I thought it was very cool. Every now and then you'll get like a literal alarm bell outside your house and there's a patient brought into the clinic which is outside. You can do all the usual things. You can do up your house. You can do up your clinic. What I don't think they really fleshed out enough, and I know some people really care about this, but I don't give a monkeys, is the whole relationship thing. You know, some people want to date everyone. There's this weird thing with farming sims that for big fans of farming sims, why is it that you want to date everyone?
It's quite an integral part of what's become, I don't know, like the basic elements of that genre. You know, the marriage aspect of getting to know the people within the town and ultimately taking one of those relationships further. You can have children in some games, so that is, you know, a big selling point to some people in these types of games. So, you know, it's good that you've mentioned that it's not there basically.
Well, there you go. Yeah, now you've explained it. I understand. I'm going to go off and have 57 kids in Stardew Valley.
There you go. Right, my next one is a game called Dodgeball Academia. Now, this is a game I did mention in one of our interesting games videos. It may have even been the first, actually, of that particular series. And it's a game I bought on a bit of a whim because I liked the art style. It has like a hand-drawn style. And I'm as silly as it might sound, I'm a big fan of dodgeball video games. You know, as much as I've never played the game really myself. And it just drew me in on those 2 points alone. And having now played it, it's almost like an RPG where you play as a character within this dodgeball school. And you kind of pick up a few characters to become your team, you know, as is traditional with RPGs. And then you battle against other people, and the way that you battle is by playing a game of dodgeball. And it's just that unique aspect to it that makes it, you know, a huge amount of fun, but B, just something refreshing to the, you know, copious amount of RPGs that you find these days.
I've been trying to, on a similar type of game, you know, Golf Story.
Yes.
That does the thing where it takes the sport and it puts it into an RPG, and it works really well. And this, actually, when you first showed me, I was like, oh my goodness, this looks incredible. And I know that loads of people picked this up off of your last recommendation. I can imagine they'll do it again. It's got a very cheap physical as well.
It was just funny you say that, because I bought it, I think it was £25 when I bought it, which I was more than happy with, but it's dropped again since then. It's well worth picking up if you can find it. Great game.
I used to play dodgeball.
Did you?
Yeah, I was the guy that stood at the back and did the spike. The big hit. I used to love it.
No, I used to play video game play, not proper play, dodgeball, Super Dodgeball I think it was called, on the NES.
Yes.
And as janky as that was with its sprite flicker, just so much fun.
You'd have been good at dodgeball because of your height.
Yeah.
You could have been at the net and just...
I don't think we never played it at school. Never played that one.
Setting.
Next, we have quite a recent release actually on the Switch. It's a game called Lunistis, which released, a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago now from the date of this video as you're seeing it. But it's a 3D platformer where you're kind of set up in the sky and you have to navigate the levels, jump across the platforms, you know, one false move or one wrong move and you plummet to your death. There are collectibles to find and you can try to get as many of those as you can, or just, you know, make a beeline for the exit. But obviously you're scored, you're graded on each level, so there's your incentive to go back again. It reminds me of more like bonus stages of old 3D platformers, things like in Mario Sunshine, there were particular bonus levels that this reminded me of. Super Monkey Ball, maybe something like that as well. Very well crafted. Controls are a little twitchy, but if you can overlook that, and to be fair, you'll get used to it quick enough. It's £5, it costs £5. I think it took me about 2.5 hours to finish, but I could go back and go for better scores. But for a £5, you know, I mean...
It's a bargain.
Yeah, well worth it. Good game.
This one uses that 32-bit art style that I loved from the PlayStation.
Yes.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, okay.
Absolutely. And it does it very well. Yeah, it's got that PS1 look to it for sure. 60
frames per second, super smooth.
Yeah, nice. Really gets all those bits right. It's just the controls let it down ever so slightly at times, but never to the point where you want to give up.
No. And it's always nice mentioning one like this because it's a very small developer. And this has essentially taken them from rags to riches.
Yeah,
they're constantly tweeting. They're just about to hit, I think it's 500 positive reviews, and then he'll get that overwhelmingly positive status, which will kick them up the store, and everyone's going to go mad for it.
Yeah, fair play to them. It's nice to hear. Nice to hear.
All right, I'm going to end with a genre that's probably up there with my favourites, and it's a first-person shooter genre, except Severed Steel takes things in a different direction. This is very much a refinement on the ideas that were started in games like Max Payne. So you have that slowdown mechanic, there's the wall running element. What I love is that they finally introduced gyroscopic controls, and I know I always bang on about it, but it does make a difference in these games if you're good at them. And yeah, it's almost like sandboxes. So each level is its own encapsulated space. You can blast through walls. It's one of the first games that properly uses destruction since the early Red Faction, which is nice. But yeah, you're fighting against enemies. There's nothing distinctly unique, but in terms of having that slow down bullet time mechanic done well, it's the best and freshest I've seen it done in a long time. It also has that beautiful like neon art style, you know, with those contrasting neon colours. Really good game, very, very highly recommended. And if you're a fan of first-person shooters, it's right up there for me on Switch.
Nice. I was thinking of a completely different game when you said this one, Severed Steel. I thought you were referring to that first-person game where you kind of jump from platform to platform. Do you know the one I mean?
Neon White.
Neon White. Okay, so Severed Steel.
Yeah, Neon White was up there, and it was the other alternative pick, and it would make a very good alternative pick.
Yep.
But Severed Steel, because it's improved so much since it launched as well, and I think Neon White had a massive acclaim when it launched. Everyone was like, this is amazing, you know. Yeah. Whereas Severed Steel, I think we were one of the only ones to review it.
Right.
So, yeah, hidden gem.
Nice. Okay, the last one then is a game called Dust Off Heli Rescue 2. Now, I don't know if anyone knows of this game, to be perfectly honest. We reviewed it way back when, like one of our first reviews, to be honest. And it reminds me very much of Choplifter. I don't know if you ever played.
Yeah, well, I know it from you.
Yeah, which was one of my favourite games on the Commodore 64. That's where I played it. I think it was on the Master System as well, and obviously other consoles. But it has that side-on view of your helicopter, although this is done in like a voxel art style. And you'll have missions that you need to undertake. Obviously, enemies will be shooting at you. You need to take them out. There are, you know, crates that you have to get to the drop-off point, that sort of thing. And there are 3 medals per stage that you need to find, or don't need to find, but can find, just to add a bit of longevity to it as well. I mean, I love this game, really do enjoy it, but then I have that nostalgia for Choplifter, which probably helps. But as far as I can remember, it was relatively cheap. I think it was like £5.39 or something like that. If that isn't the case, it's a bit more expensive, that might knock it down a tad. But this was one that I was very pleasantly surprised by.
Yeah, I was thinking when we first played this, it was going to be a bit like Jungle Strike and Desert Strike. Do you remember all those games back on the Amiga?
Yeah, they were isometric though, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. I want those back.
Yeah, they were great games. I enjoyed those too back in the day, but it was something about that side-on view for me because of Choplifter that's always my favourite way to play, you know, a helicopter-type game.
Perfect. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the 2022 Hidden Gems list. Let me know any that you've got. Put them down in the comments. I should have said at the start of the video that we are giving away a Switch OLED at the end of all of this, and it's only going to be based on your comments down below. We're going to be picking out some random winners and announcing those on the very last day before Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely, and that comes via the people that help us to run our website, where we offer eShop cards at a discounted price, 10% off. So obviously by supporting that too, you save yourself a bit of money, but you allow us to continue to grow and to offer such competitions. So if you want to do that, SwitchUp.gg, use the code SwitchUp and save yourself 10%.
What a perfect segue. Nicely done, Glenn. All that's left to say is thanks so much for watching. Thanks to our patrons and members. And as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!
Okay. Right, the first one I want to talk about then is a game called Assault Chain Gun SM. I'll say that again, sorry. It's KM, isn't it, not MK? Right, the first one I want to talk about is a game called Assault Chain Gun SMK. I said it again, it's KM. What's an absolute play? KM. Right, the first one I want to talk about then is a game called Assault Chain Gun SMK. Frick!
Whoa!
That's just...
Whoa!
3 times in a row.
Are you okay?
MK, no.
Wow,
KM.
I can't wait till this happens again.
KM. KM.
KM, mate. SMK.
No, not SMK. KM.
Yeah, go on.
Right, the first one I want to talk about then is a game called Assault Chain Gun SM. Come on. KM.
Wow.
It's because M comes easier than K, doesn't it?
SMK 3, 2, 1.
Right, let's try again. Right, the first one I want to talk about then is a game called Assault Chain Gun SKM. No, I said it right that time. Oh no!
But isn't it just KM?
No, it is an S. Look, there's the S there. Look.
Oh,
I don't know why it's not on there.
Oh, okay. So you can have the S. Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's going to take another 6 goes now.
Sorry, bro. You got this. You got this. I got it.
Right, ready?
Yeah.
Right, the first one I'm going to talk about then is a game called Assault Game
Assault Game Chum. Yeah, you got your mate, your chum. He's overweight. You got to assault him.
Right.
Maybe you don't even need to look there.
No, I'm not even looking.
Oh, you're just focusing on SKM.
Is it SKM? I think at the moment. KM.
SKM, yeah.
Yeah. Right, the first one I want to talk about then is a game called Assault Chain. It's ridiculous. Okay, the first one I want to talk about is a game called Assault Chain Gun SMK. Oh, just freaking hell! Come on.
It's just SKM.
No, SMK. KM.
No, it's KM.
Yeah, KM. Why do I keep saying MK?
I don't know, but I'm loving it. I'm loving it. This is priceless.
I said it right.
It's really good for Glen, this is.
Yeah.
It's getting past that frustration curve. Let's go.
Right, the first one I want to talk about is a game called Assault Chain Gun SMK. This is ridiculous.
This is so going in the outtake. I am loving this. And are you loving this? Probably, yeah. Probably, yeah. Do you want me to intro it?
Yeah, no.
No. Work your way through it.
We're having this. It's happening.
Let's go.
Right, the first one I want to talk about then is a game called Assault Chain Gun S. I went to say M, went to stop myself, and my mouth just exploded.
What was that? I literally saw it. It's like a little tactical nuke went off in it. Words just all over the floor.
Right,
He's scrabbling around trying to pick them up.
This time it's happening.
Oh, why wouldn't it?
How many of what?
This is take 19.
Right, okay.
It's fine.
Right, take 20 is my lucky number.
Yes.
It has always been my lucky number.
This has literally never happened before.
No, ever.
And I'm loving it, I must say.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Right, the first one no, that's right. This time, 21. I meant 21, not 20. Right, the first one I want to talk about then is Assault.
Do you know what? There are certain word and vowel combinations which are. This happens to me all the time, and I get stuck, fully stuck, to the point where before I've actually recorded like assault and then recorded that and stuck it together.
Yeah,
I've actually done that before because it's weird, isn't it?
It's just you need to reset, don't you?
Yeah. Well, let me just try and say it just here, just while we're sat here. Assault Chain Gun SKM.
That's the one. Wasn't hard.
Well, you know.
Right, the first one I want to talk about then is Assault Chain Gun SKM.